That shit's stuck in my head even when I'm not here. It's so bad. Shit, am I sitting the right? Okay, I am. I'm starting to share my little podcast with like people in real life. It's a little scary. Again, my name is Anna. Welcome everybody. Let's see who is in the thingamabobber in the chat. Today I am getting over a fever and we're gonna react to a really cool lady that I like. I like kind of fangirl over her. Asmaroon, very nice to see you. Uncle Guns, nice to see you. Romano, nice to see you. I know we're starting kind of early today, but I'm gonna go to sleep early, so YOLO. God, I'm old. Asmaroon, I'd like to see how you're doing. Hope you're doing really well. Okay, so without further ado, we're going to lower the volume. The first video we're gonna watch is, let's watch the Oprah one. Yeah. Because she gives such a great example of what this lady is. Present. No, yes, no. Oprah? Yes. And again, as always, fair use. Fair use, blah, blah, blah. No YouTube.
Jill Bolte Taylor was a brain scientist at Harvard University. She suffered a stroke back in 1996 as she was getting ready for work.
When the hemorrhage happened, the left hemisphere got wiped out in its functions, but the right hemisphere was okay. The right hemisphere is right here, right now, and it's being, having an experience. The right hemisphere thinks in pictures. The left hemisphere thinks in language. Our left hemisphere is about the past and about the future, and it has a to-do list and is doing. So the two hemispheres just think differently.
An easier way to understand this is you have the artistic creative brain versus the logical mathematical brain.
So when I lost the left hemisphere, I lost my past.
So she literally shut down half of her brain, and by accident only had access to the other side of her brain that she previously did not have access to.
I lost my future. I lost my language. I lost the identity of whom I had been and all the memories of my life. I was still capable of being in the present moment. I just was no longer connected to the portion of my brain that said, I am an individual. This is my name. This is the data of my life. And this is what I need to do in order to get help.
After a few days in the hospital, Jill's mother came to help care for her.
Everybody was excited. My colleagues were there. Gigi was coming to town. Gigi's coming to town. I'm thinking, what's a Gigi? What's a Gigi? I didn't even know what a mother was, much less who my mother was. And everybody's all excited about Gigi coming to town. So Gigi arrives, and I'll always remember this moment. I'm in bed, and Gigi peeps in around the corner of the room. And she walks past the doctors. She nods to them. She greets my colleagues. She walks around the bed. She picks up the sheet, and she crawls in bed with me. She wraps her arms around me, and she starts rocking me. And I'm thinking, oh,
remember this.
That's what a Gigi is. This is what a Gigi is. That's nice.
No, that's the most beautiful
nice.
Right?
It was so beautiful. She's all about me. She's tending to them, but she's about me. This is about me.
So this was the thing that changed me, that I realized that a lot of time, one of the things you said in the book is that I'm in here, come get me.
I'm in here, come find me.
I'm in here, come find me.
Come find me.
And many times when people, just because they can't speak or they can't communicate, or the side of their face is dropped, they're in there, come find me. And what you were more perceptive than you've ever been in your life, because you could feel the energy that everybody.
Okay, this is a terrible reaction. I don't like this, and we're gonna stop this. I feel like Oprah kills everything. I mean, unalives. Fuck this bitch. I have another one. Don't worry, this one's much better. And then I have a longer one, so if anyone wants to stay to watch that one, you can too. But this first one is really good. There we go.
Me more joy. Nothing brings me more joy than helping people better understand the tool that.
I just want everybody to understand how much the human brain attached to the spinal cord looks like semen.
They have to live their life on purpose.
It's not as above, so below. It's so within, so without,
We have this magnificent brain, and it has different predictable parts. And the better we get to know those different parts, then we have more power over who and how we want to be in any moment. The brain does not have to be such a mystery. We can actually understand it, differentiate ourselves, and then behave in ways that bring us less anxiety and more peace. It thrills me. I love brains.
Me too, bitch. Me too. This is a much better explanation because Oprah's ego is not getting in the way of it and asking silly questions. She's fully explaining her experience. And I think this is 10 years later. So she has more, science has caught up in the last, especially 5 to 10 years. It is working, how do I say this? Science previously had allotted for realistic outcomes. There are a lot of scientific reports by Ivy League schools, government officials, government programs, scientific communities, established, might I add, that are making everyone and their mother question what's real and what's not real, which is why I love this stuff, because it's like, oh, I'm not the only crazy one, so everyone's going crazy. None of it makes sense, but it does make sense.
I am Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor. I'm a neuroanatomist and the author of My Stroke of Insight and Whole Brain Living. I'm a neuroanatomist. I study the anatomy of the brain. So I can visualize in my brain the circuits of how all the information comes in order for me to be able to have a perception of reality. When we look at the human brain, it has emotional tissue in the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere, and it has thinking tissue in both the right hemisphere and in the left hemisphere. So we end up with these 4 very specific groups of cells, modules of cells, that result in very specific skill sets, resulting in very specific personalities that we all exhibit. So we have left thinking, that is structured and organized, and it's what we call our rational thinking brain. It categorizes and organizes. It has language, the ability to create sound, and then another group of cells places meaning on top of that. I know when I'm being analytical and I'm being structured and organized and I'm planning things for the future, or I'm counting 1 + 1 = 2, I know that that's my left thinking portion of my brain. The left emotional part of our brain has miraculously stepped out of the present moment consciousness and given us the ability to remember things from our past or to project ideas into the future. Now, with that, I can create an individuation as well as the linearity across time. And now, because I have linearity across time, I can learn from my past experiences. The right emotional part of my brain is then, how does it feel to be in my body in the present moment? What does it feel like when I dive into the water and I feel the pressure push against my body? What does it feel like to feel water as wet? I'm not on the clock. I'm lost in the flow. I've got this excitement and I have a level of curiosity.
Again, creative side of the brain. That equates to like a lot of feelings. You get it.
Curiosity. And then my right thinking tissue is simply the consciousness of me, big as the universe, connected to all that is, and this immense sense of gratitude that I exist at all. Oh my gosh, I'm alive. We are living creatures made up of these magnificent cells, and there's an awe and a wonder and this deep sense of gratitude. Once you start realizing the 4 different characters inside of yourself and being able to recognize those in others, you can't not see it anymore.
That's how I do face readings.
And once you understand it, it's like, I have so much more power over what's going on inside of my brain than anybody ever taught me.
What she's basically explaining is that there is such a thing as mind over matter, and it's not necessarily just to a degree, because she was able to have, I say able to have because it's kind of like a blessing in disguise. She was already a neuroanatomist, I believe, and then she switched over because of the stroke that she had. She was able to fully experience the right side of her brain, which many people can't. And then society has like a negative connotation to creatives. You're talking about artists, you're talking about singers, you're talking about actors, painters, the content creators, people that are very like woo-woo and flowy are deemed as not as logical or smart or intelligent as people that have more of the left brain. The left brain is mathematics, science, linguistics. It's more serious. And so it's a blessing. She just got to shut down the left side and only experience the right side, which is termed to be what scientists believe is enlightenment. Because even artists that primarily focus on the right side, they don't have enlightenment to only be on the right side of their brain. They still hold on to a lot of logic that they've been programmed to have in this reality. I don't know if that's making sense, but
wow, that's beautiful.
Wow.
So I grew up to study the brain because I have a brother who's diagnosed with the brain disorder schizophrenia. So my focus was on how does our brain create our perception of reality? Because my brother's perception of reality was so different from mine. And so I was teaching and performing research at Harvard Medical School. And at the age of 37, I woke up one morning and I had a major hemorrhage happening in the left hemisphere of my brain. My brain says, oh my gosh, I'm having a stroke. I'm having a stroke. And then another part of my brain is saying, wow, this is so cool. I'm having a stroke. How many brain scientists have the opportunity?
This bitch. This is why I fucking love this old lady. She's like, wow, what an opportunity. I see it that way because I didn't have a fucking stroke. But she does because she's a fucking nerd.
To study their own brain from the inside out like this. And then when I awoke later that afternoon, the left hemisphere was completely shut down. I no longer had me, the individual. I didn't know where I began and where I ended. Jill Bolte Taylor died that day. And I was literally laying in this bed and felt like a ton of lead in the present moment. And when you're in the right here, right now, and you have this expansive openness, big as the universe experience, then you see how everything is interrelated and energetically impacted. So I still had those portions of my brain functioning, but me, the individual, I was gone. And we really had no idea, even following surgery, what I would get back or if I would have any ability to have any recognition or recollection of the identity that I had had for 37 years. So what the stroke gave me was this new introduction to the depth of these emotions.
Because again, she's only utilizing the creative side of the brain, which is, if you look at history itself, a lot of, the Asian groups, Middle Eastern groups, European groups, they all talk about a level of enlightenment. And that's what she's supposedly experienced, which is really cool.
However, my sadness, my grief is a whole body, whole envelopment, and it takes you to your knees, and it takes.
So she's talking about the intense feelings, because when it's primarily the right side of your brain, those are the people that are, again, artists and creatives are very emotional. So we've all seen when people can't necessarily control their emotions and they cry for everything or they get mad for everything. That means that they're using a lot of the right side, but when there's an imbalance, anyways.
Takes you to the floor and you just flood with this incredible emotion. And wow, I feel this because I loved. This is the beauty of being alive, but it's not designed to be a lifestyle. It's designed to be information that I can then learn from and hold on to and find meaning in my world. The emotions, the power of the emotions are so beautiful, so rich, so everything, that without them, we would be 1 + 1 = 2, and who really cares?
That part.
It took 8 years for me to completely recover all function. I knew that I had completely recovered when that organizational part of me came back online and said, now I want to be the boss again. And the rest of my brain went, we are so glad you're back because we need your skill sets to be a functional human being in
So you need both sides, but
our society. But no, we are not going to live based on the values of the left hemisphere. We are now going to live as a collective democracy inside of our own head. I have to have that left hemisphere in order to be a functional human being. But even though my ego center is in my left hemisphere is not who I am. I am a left hemisphere and a right hemisphere. If we are hooked into the emotional part of our left hemisphere that says, I don't like that, it's not familiar, I don't feel safe, that clamps me down and I become constricted. And I can fuel that by sharing those biases with those whom I am familiar with. Then we all become more constricted. We all become more rigid. We all become more we versus they. Yet we have the capacity to say, I am a part of a magnificent collective whole in relationship to a magnificent world And as we engage with the world in a healthier way, the world becomes healthier. We have the capacity to understand and have a healthy relationship with all the different parts of who we are. And when we look at the anatomy of the brain, when we get that streamlined activity between the two thinking parts of our brain, the two emotional parts of our brain, and we're having a whole brain life, wow, things change. I think the first thing we need to do is be willing and open to explore what's going on inside of our own head. Get to know who you are. Get to know your four characters. Get to know how they engage in your life, who they have relationships with, how they feel inside of your body. How much time do you want to spend in each of these four different parts? Once you know that, then you can create a negotiation. And to me, that's personal freedom, to be able to know I have the power to choose moment by moment who and how I want to be, regardless of my external circumstance. And it's a wonderful, wonderful way of being.
Okay, I have one more for you guys. If you don't understand, what she's talking about is being able to control your brain and control your outcome and control your life. So, you know. Hi, guys. Let me just go through the comments. WG, it's nice to see you. Tyrone, nice to see you. Self-made, nice to see you. Let's keep going. Where are we? There we go. So this is her TED.
To study the brain because I have a brother who has been diagnosed with a brain disorder, schizophrenia. And as a sister and later as a scientist, I wanted to understand why is it that I can take my dreams, I can connect them to my reality, and I can make my dreams come true. What is it about my brother's brain and his schizophrenia that he cannot connect his dreams to a common and shared reality, so they instead become delusion? So I dedicated my career to research into the severe mental illnesses. And I moved from my home state of Indiana to Boston, where I was working in the lab of Dr. Francine Bennis in the Harvard Department of Psychiatry. And in the lab, we were asking the question, what are the biological differences between the brains of individuals who would be diagnosed as normal control as compared with the brains of individuals diagnosed with schizophrenia, schizoaffective, or bipolar disorder?
Ooh.
So we were essentially...
I didn't even know that she did the study with bipolar disorder.
Mapping the microcircuitry of the brain, which cells are...
And the importance of this lady is she's one of the few neurologists in the field that can attest to being able to rewire your brain for a different and significant outcome in your life. So all the woo-woo people and all the people that talk about reprogramming and all the matrix people, they're all right because she's one of the scientists that are able to prove it, not just through her personal experience, but through the actual research and studies that have been, stamp of approval. But it's like all the people that stand in the mirror and they say, like, I am beautiful, I am rich, I am wealthy, I am healthy. They have something to it. You're actually, on a molecular level, science is proving that you're reprogramming the cells in your body. But on a neurological level, she and many other scientists are also neurologists are proving that you can actually rewire the different pathways within your brain. We get addicted to things like drama, like chaos, just like drug addicts get addicted to drugs. We can get addicted to situations, people, places, and things. What she is stating is that we also have the capability of rewiring those neural pathways so that we are no longer addicted to those things and instead addicted to things like being healthy, going to the gym, making money, choosing the healthy relationships, being on a high throughout your life. These are all different forms of addiction. So a lot of the science has concluded that you're going to be addicted to something, you might as well be addicted to good things.
Are communicating with which cells, with which chemicals, and then in what quantities of those chemicals. So there was a lot of meaning in my life because I was performing this type of research during the day. But then in the evenings and on the weekends, I traveled as an advocate for NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. But on the morning of December 10, 1996, I woke up to discover that I had a brain disorder of my own. A blood vessel exploded in the left half of my brain. And in the course of 4 hours, I watched my brain completely deteriorate in its ability to process all information. On the morning of the hemorrhage, I could not walk, talk, read, write, or recall any of my life. I essentially became an infant in a woman's body. If you've ever seen
Again, that stroke made her lose her abilities.
a human brain, it's obvious that the two hemispheres are completely separate from one another. And I have brought for you a real human brain.
Again, just remember the human brain attached to the spinal cord. It looks like semen. It's just weird. It's funny.
Thank you. So this is a real human brain. This is the front of the brain, the back of the brain with the spinal cord hanging down. And this is how it would be positioned inside of my head. And when you look at the brain, it's obvious that the two cerebral cortices are completely separate from one another. For those of you who understand computers, our right hemisphere functions like a parallel processor, while our left hemisphere functions like a serial processor. The two hemispheres do communicate with one another through the corpus callosum, which is made up of some 300 million axonal fibers. But other than that, the two hemispheres are completely separate. Because they process information differently, each of our hemispheres think about different things, they care about different things, and dare I say, they have very different personalities. Excuse me. Thank you. It's been a joy. Our right human hemisphere is all about this present moment. It's all about right here, right now. Our right hemisphere, it thinks in pictures.
Okay, so a man's brain physiologically is larger than a woman's. However, a woman's gray matter is actually larger than a man's gray matter, which means that we control life and situations and the simulation, if you will, more than men do, which I always laugh about the phrase, happy wife, happy life. And I like to tell men, if they have women in their lives, make sure that it's women that want the best for you and that trust you to make your own decisions, because a lot of times you can have a woman around your life that is terrified for you and it will make opportunities go away because she doesn't want you to leave, or she doesn't want you to get hurt, or she's worried about you. It's much better to have a woman around you that supports you, believes in you, and trusts you to make mistakes and to grow from them, because the gray matter is what creates the reality, the subconscious beliefs, not the conscious what we actually think. So she could consciously be thinking, I want him to do so well, but because her subconscious wants the guy all to herself, then she's going to think, but I want him all to myself. That job's going to take him away. That opportunity is going to take him away. It's just weird stuff like that science is proving is correct. And yeah, it's bigger, but you guys don't have as much gray matter, which is the important part.
And it learns kinesthetically through the movement of our bodies. Information in the form of energy streams in simultaneously through all of our sensory systems, and then it explodes into this enormous collage of what this present moment looks like, what this present moment smells like and tastes like, what it feels like, and what it sounds like. I am an energy being connected to the energy all around me through the consciousness of my right hemisphere. We are energy beings connected to one another through the consciousness of our right hemispheres.
Welcome, Patricia.
As one human family. And right here, right now, we are brothers and sisters on this planet, here to make the world a better place.
Romano, I know you were making a joke, but I like to play on it. What else am I going to do?
And in this moment, we are perfect, we are whole, and we are beautiful. My left hemisphere, our left hemisphere, is a very different place. Our left hemisphere thinks linearly and methodically. Our left hemisphere is all about the past, and it's all about the future. Our left hemisphere is designed to take that enormous collage of the present moment and start picking out details, and more details about those details. It then categorizes and organizes all that information, associates it with everything in the past we've ever learned, and projects into the future all of our possibilities. And our left hemisphere thinks in language. It's that ongoing brain chatter that connects me and my internal world to my external world. It's that little voice that says to me, hey, you got to remember to pick up bananas on your way home. I need them in the morning. It's that calculating intelligence that reminds me when I have to do my laundry. But perhaps most important, it's that little voice that says to me, I am. And as soon as my left hemisphere says to me, I am, I become separate. I become a single, solid individual, separate from the energy flow around me and separate from you. And this is a portion of my brain that I lost on the morning of my stroke. On the morning of the stroke, I woke up to a pounding pain behind my left eye. And it was the kind of pain, caustic pain, that you get when you bite into ice cream. And it just gripped me, and then it released me. And then it just gripped me, and then it released me. And it was very unusual for me to ever experience any kind of pain, so I thought, okay, I'll just start my normal routine. So I got up and I jumped onto my cardia glider, which is a full body, full exercise machine. And I'm jamming away on this thing, and I'm realizing that my hands look like primitive claws grasping onto the bar. And I thought, that's very peculiar. And I looked down at my body and I thought, whoa, I'm a weird looking thing. And it was as though my consciousness had shifted away from my normal perception of reality, where I'm the person on the machine having the experience, to some esoteric space where I'm witnessing myself having this experience. And it was all very peculiar, and my headache was just getting worse. So I get off the machine, and I'm walking across my living room floor, and I realize that everything inside of my body has slowed way down. And every step is very rigid and very deliberate. There's no fluidity to my pace. And there's this constriction in my area of perception, getting ready to step into the shower. And I could actually hear the dialogue inside of my body. I heard a little voice saying, okay, you muscles, you got to contract, and you muscles, you relax. And then I lost my balance, and I'm propped up against the wall. And I looked down at my arm, and I realized that I can no longer define the boundaries of my body. I can't define where I begin and where I end, because the molecules of asking hemisphere brain, the mute button of a silence of my body, the energy online. I got a problem. I back out into the consciousness, and I affectionately refer to this space as La La Land.
Perfect. So now she's talking about it. So all of this description was her experiencing the right side of her brain for the first time, just simply and completely. And that's the side where we have that internal monologue. That's the side where we have negative thinking. That's the side where we have, like, you stub your toe and you think, oh, you fucking piece of shit, how could you hurt yourself? That's the internal monologue. That's the right side. That's the voice in your head. That's not the left side. The left side doesn't have a voice. The left side just is. So it's really important to understand that she's talking about this as La La Land, and you can't have one without the other to have full impact of your brain. Meaning a lot of times you'll see people that only have one or the other, meaning they're only logical thinkers or scientific, whatever, or they're super creative, but they don't have a logical bone in their body. The problem with that is, just like in face reading, this is essentially your creative and this is essentially your logic. When you have one more than the other, you're significantly imbalanced, so that you cannot see. If you're just logical, you can't see opportunities. And if you are just creative, you probably don't do as much work as the logical side to yield the results that you want. So you're just in dreamland. You're just in la la land. And I can say that as a kid, I experienced turning off the left side of my brain so that I was in la la land the majority of my childhood. And there's many different reasons why people do this subconsciously. I was able to consciously do it, and I remember doing it, and I remember having a lot of issues throughout the rest of my life into my 20s until I turned the right side of my brain back on, which took a lot of work, but it's possible. And then once you have more balance, you can actually have cognitive thinking. You have a lot more wherewithal. You have a lot more energy. You have a lot more discernment. So like a lot of guys or women that have, especially the men and women that talk about dating, that they're just like crying like, oh my God, all men are terrible or all women are terrible. Most likely you have one side of your brain working more than the other side, and you're not using both sides of your brain, which the right side is actually connected to your heart, which also has neurons. So if you're not using your heart neurons, then that means you're fucking dumb. If you're only using one side of your brain, one little portion, that means you're dumb. Like, I don't know how else to say. I think everyone wants to be politically correct. I'm gonna tell you, you're dumb. There's another term that, or phrase that people say, which is like, you only use 10% of your brain, which is a fucking lie. The rest of that phrase that comes from a scientific report is you only use 10% of your you only use 10% of your conscious mind. You use 90% of your subconscious mind. So when we are out in the world, when we're dating, when we're working, when we're trying to lose weight, when we are, whatever it is that we're doing, 90% of our outcome, 90% of how we display ourselves, 90% of what we just display and what we outwardly show the world is coming from that subconscious mind. Only 10% is actually coming from the conscious mind. So you see it all the fucking time. How many times do you have someone that's like acting irrational or emotional when you're just trying to calmly have a conversation like, hey, you hurt me. And they're like, oh my God, you hate me. You think I'm a piece of shit. No, that's because they are only using a certain portion of their brain, and they can't fathom engaging any other parts of their brain or their heart in order to have the conversation, because that would, in order to, usually people, when they close those, it's they're through some sort of trauma. Like mine, when I was a kid, it was through trauma. I was like, I'm not feeling this. Let's shut down the left side of my brain. Let's go in la la land. And that's a lot of the community, like the world. It's not like, oh, I'm special. Like most of the population turns off one or the other, because trauma doesn't have to be a catastrophic, terrible situation. Trauma could very well be something like your parents just weren't proud of you, or you felt that way, or no one ever said they were proud of you. That's why the stream yesterday with the whole I love you, bro, was so nice to have, because it doesn't matter what the conscious brain is receiving and how we are able to like, oh, that doesn't bother me. What matters is what the subconscious brain stores as law. So if you're a kid, like one example that I have is when I was a kid in elementary school, I was in the art department, and my art teacher said that I was a late bloomer. That was catastrophic because I didn't get to go to the opera. I didn't get to go be a part of an art exhibit. There were a lot of things that I missed out on her saying that I wasn't good enough. Until like 6 months later, I blew everyone out of the fucking water, but I didn't get to have those experiences. And so I accidentally programmed myself to be a quote late bloomer. So any situation, place, thing, whatever that I was in, I would lag to the very end. And then I wouldn't succeed until everyone else succeeded, so that I could be a quote late bloomer. And that's not something that I was doing on purpose. That's something that my subconscious mind was creating for me to fill that addiction of like, oh yes, here I am, a late bloomer. Because what happens is, as kids, we program ourselves, or we get programmed by society, people, places, and things, all the propaganda that's out here. And our subconscious programs that as law, as something that we need to understand is our reality. And it keeps on repeating it until we change it. And we have the power. And that's the importance of her, is that we have the power to change these stories.
But it was beautiful there. Imagine what it would be like to be totally disconnected from your brain chatter that connects you to the external world. So
I knew there was going to be one motherfucker that said, I got to get rid of one side of my brain. Fuck you, hater self.
So here I am in this space, and my job and any stress related to my job, it was gone. And I felt lighter in my body. And imagine all of the relationships in the external world and any stressors related to any of those, they were gone. And I felt this sense of peacefulness. And imagine what it would feel like to lose 37 years of emotional baggage. Oh, I felt euphoria.
And that's the beautiful part of why you see people that primarily stick to the right side of the brain become things like drug addicts, because they have shut down the left side of their brain, which leaves them in la la land or woo woo land, whatever you want to call it. And the only thing that can help feed that into a reality is doing substance abuse, so that you aren't dealing with reality. There's no logical side that you have to deal with. You just get to be in la la land. So when we look at drug addicts and people with mental health disorders, it's really, really important for us to acknowledge this side, because it's not that they're doing it on purpose. They're not trying to hurt us. They're not trying to be a piece of, you know what I mean? They're just mentally challenged. Really, bitch? Come on. Don't leave me hanging. Come on. Don't leave me hanging. I just left with a banger. What happened? 10-4. I don't know what just happened, but we're going to try to do this, bitch. Vistaprint. La da 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 da. This commercial is brought to you by blah 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 blah. Sorry, it's TED Talk, so you know.
Okay, I can't stop the stroke from happening, so I'll do this for a week or two, and then I'll get back to my routine. Okay, so I got to call help. I got to call work. I couldn't remember the number at work. So I remembered in my office I had a business card with my number on it. So I go into my business room. I pull out a 3-inch stack of business cards. And I'm looking at the card on top. And even though I could see clearly in my mind's eye what my business card looked like, I couldn't tell if this was my card or not, because all I could see were pixels. And the pixels of the words blended with the pixels of the background and the pixels of the symbols, and I just couldn't tell. And then I would wait for what I call a wave of clarity. And in that moment, I would be able to reattach to normal reality. And I could tell, that's not the card, that's not the card, that's not the card. It took me 45 minutes to get 1 inch down inside of that stack of cards. In the meantime, for 45 minutes, the hemorrhage is getting bigger in my left hemisphere. I do not understand numbers. I do not understand a telephone, but it's the only plan I have. So I take the phone pad and I put it right here. I take the business card, I put it right here, and I'm matching the shape of the squiggles on the card to the shape of the squiggles on the phone pad. But then I would drift back out into la la land and not remember if when I come back, if I'd already dialed those numbers.
My favorite part of her is that what she's describing is my personal ADD. I would forget all the time. And that's another thing. So ADD is a trauma response. They'll tell you it's a disease and all of these things. It's a trauma response. I avoided something so bad that my brain is used to avoiding things. And so I constantly avoid things that trigger me or make me feel scared or anxiety or worried. They did a study in the 1950s where they would change light bulbs to, I think it was fluorescent or out of fluorescent. And that's all they did. And kids would significantly change their behavior. And so we have a lot of things that instigate dangerous feelings, and so people with ADD will avoid them, not realizing it's actually a trauma response. I've worked with 2 people now that have ADD or ADHD. I'm sorry, it's now termed ADHD, that are able to not avoid these situations, people, places, and things anymore because, and they're not having as many brain farts either.
So I had to wield my paralyzed arm like a stump and cover the numbers as I went along and push them so that as I would come back to normal reality, I'd be able to tell, yes, I've already dialed that number. Eventually, the whole number gets dialed, and I'm listening to the phone, and my colleague picks up the phone, and he says to me,
her cognitive skills were impaired. She couldn't understand.
I think to myself, oh my gosh, he sounds like a golden retriever. And so I say to him, clear in my mind, I say to him, this is Jill, I need help. And what comes out of my voice is, and I think, oh my gosh, I sound like a golden retriever. So I didn't know that I couldn't speak or understand language until I tried. So he recognized.
And I'm sorry. No, I'm not. I probably shouldn't share this, but I don't care. YOLO. When I don't know, I think I was 18. I had a situation where I tried to say things out loud, and all that would come out was won't, 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 won't. But I was hyper aware of my surroundings. That I could make out what they were saying, but the words outside of me not coming out.
I just said I need help, and he gets me help. And a little while later, I'm riding in an ambulance from one hospital across Boston to Mass General Hospital, and I curl up into a little fetal ball. And just like a balloon, with the last bit of air just right out of the balloon, I just felt my energy lift, and I felt my spirit surrender. And in that moment, I knew that I was no longer the choreographer of my life, and either the doctors rescue my body and give me a second chance at life, or this was perhaps my moment of transition. When I woke later that afternoon, I was shocked to discover that I was still alive. When I felt my spirit surrender, I said goodbye to my life, and my mind was now suspended between 2 very opposite planes of reality. Stimulation.
She kind of like brushes by that, but I want everyone to acknowledge she was at. This is why I love her, because it takes a certain type of kooky. Yeah, I've had that experience. But it takes a certain level of kooky to be able to be like, oh, I'm being unalived right now. This is what's happening. This is the reality of my situation, and I may not wake up. And to be in that moment, and for a split second, what happens is, and this is from personal experience multiple times, it's kind of like unaliving before you unalive. You have this like split second where time stops, and you ask yourself questions. I don't know if other people do this, but I've asked myself questions. One, which is, am I happy with how I've been in my life? Which my answer was yes. Am I happy with the person that I've conducted myself as in my life? The answer was yes. And then when I asked myself, am I happy with all that I've accomplished in my life? My answer was fuck no. And that's kind of what she's describing right now. You have this moment of clarity of like, this is actually what's happening. You're not just like, oh, I'm going to go into heaven or earth or hell or whatever. You're not just having that thought. You're really looking at it analytically of like, this is it. Am I good? And I think that that's a really beautiful gift of desperation, but she kind of like brushes by it like it wasn't a big deal. And yes, hater cell, I could not speak. I was, my answer is no to all of those questions. Good. That means that you have not had near unaliving experiences. That is a good thing. That means you love yourself. when you have unaliving experiences or close calls, it's kind of like the universe saying, like, wake the fuck up, which I needed to wake the fuck up at that time.
Coming in through my sensory systems felt like pure pain. Light burned my brain like wildfire, and sounds were so loud and chaotic that I could not pick a voice out from the background noise, and I just wanted to escape because I could not identify the position of my body in space. I felt enormous and expansive, like a genie just liberated from her bottle. And my spirit soared free like a great whale gliding through a sea of silent euphoria. Nirvana. I found nirvana. And I remember thinking there's no way I would ever be able to squeeze the enormousness of myself back inside this tiny little body. But then I realized, but I'm still alive. I'm still alive, and I have found nirvana. And if I have found nirvana and I'm still alive, then everyone who is alive can find nirvana. And I pictured a world filled with beautiful, peaceful, compassionate, loving people who knew that they could come to this space at any time and that they could purposely choose to step to the right of their left hemispheres and find this peace. And then I realized what a tremendous gift this experience could be. What a stroke of insight this could be to how we live our lives. And it motivated me to recover.
Which it is.
2.5 weeks after the hemorrhage, the surgeons went in.
Most people don't survive this either.
They removed a blood clot the size of a golf ball.
I've had 2 friends that died from blood clots like that. I mean, sorry, unalived, because, you know, we have to dehumanize ourselves.
Was pushing on my language.
I mean, for drama. This channel's for entertainment purposes only, remember?
Language centers. Here I am with my mama, who's a true angel in my life. It took me 8 years to completely recover. So, who are we? We are the life force power of the universe with manual dexterity and 2 cognitive minds. And we have the power to choose moment by moment who and how we want to be in the world. Right here, right now, I can step into the consciousness of my right hemisphere where I am the life force power of the universe. I am the life force power of the 50 trillion.
Okay, she sounds a little woo-woo. Let me break it down what she's trying to say. Oh, wow, my poor computer is like, yo. My problem is I'm addicted to close calls, B words, punctures, certain fights, bomb, shrapnel, flammable objects, zipping projectiles past me, broken bones, dislocations. I enjoy talking to God. Likewise, Uncle Guns, that's why I adore you. And you told me to get out of California, and I did, and I appreciate your advice for that because it was probably the best advice I ever took. You told me 2 years ago, Anna, in order to have a better dating, whatever, blah, 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 get the fuck out of LA. And ever since I did that, night and day. Thank you for that. But my foot fell asleep and it tickles. Oh God, this is so fucked up. Fuck you, leg. Ugh, fuck this leg. Ow, stop tickling. Sorry. I wish I had better. I used to have a better poker face when my left side of my brain was turned off. I was more masochistic and I was more like stone cold. And now I'm like, oh, I feel everything. You know what would help you is I had a program in my head, which was, I don't know where I got it from, probably my dad, go big or go home. So everything that I did was literally go big or go home. Unalive me or try to unalive me or I'm going to have fun living my crazy life the way that I want to. When I started changing it to go big or at least attempt a little bit, for some reason, the go home part, which was the triggering the unaliving part, I started having less drama in my life. I don't know if you like that or not. Wes, I do see you. Let me finish playing this for a few more moments, and then I'm going to bring you up and we can talk a little bit. Okay, cool. She's done. Thanks, Jill. Love you. You're the best. Anyways, I'm going to drop the link one more time. Shit, that's my number. Let's delete that. Give me 1 second. I'm going to drop the link one more time, and then Wes, I'll bring you back once you come up. Did YouTube knock me off? That would be really sad if it did. You know what? Maybe it knocked me off because I was using the TED Talk website instead of the regular website, and the regular, like, YouTube allows for utilizing less bandwidth. I notice on TED Talks, if you try to watch the videos, they actually take more of your internet bandwidth. So my internet's been fucking weird. It's really expensive internet, so I don't know why it's being fucking weird. Wes, hi. Wait.
Hello.
Wait, let me make us. Okay, hi. How are you?
Good, yourself?
I think amazing. Yeah. I had McDonald's French fries, so I'm really happy.
You had what?
McDonald's French fries.
It's an addiction.
Right?
Need to work on that.
I don't give a fuck. I love it.
Try a 12-step program for McDonald's French fries.
I fucking love those. I know. And every time I eat into the fucking McDonald's French fries, I know it's not real. I know that it's bad for me. I know that I could be eating fucking dog shit for all I know. I don't care. It tastes so good. And I had the chicken nuggets with the barbecue sauce. I also know those are fucking made of garbage. I don't care. Sometimes it's good for your soul.
You should try some probiotics.
No, I grew up poor. It's like nostalgia.
That's fine. So what's the best thing that I may have missed?
The neurologist and neuroanatomist and I think epigeneticist. I can't remember what the fuck the third term that she switched over to was. But she had a stroke, which allowed her to turn off the left side of her brain and only utilize the right side of her brain, which is something that happened to me as a kid. And I turned off the left side of my brain. I only left the right side of my brain. And so I got into drinking. I got into drugs when I was a kid. I got sober. But I always struggled with those things because the left side of my brain was fucking broken. And so it wasn't until I turned on the left side of my brain and started utilizing it, because it's like a muscle and you can start exercising it, that everything shifted for me. And then in combination, she's also saying it's a mind over matter kind of situation where you do have to choose and decide to be better. And put forth the effort to be better. But by doing it, you can rewire your neural pathways. So if you're addicted to drugs, you could be addicted to making money. If you're addicted to women, you could be addicted to healthy relationships instead. If you're addicted to fucking cookies, you could be addicted to apples instead. The neurological, hi Daniel, the neurological community is literally fucking making it possible for us to understand that it's mind over matter. But yeah, that's what the lady was about.
So
and she had a stroke that did that, and so she studied. Not only did she have the stroke, but she was also able to study her own brain and what happened during that time. So she wrote a book about it, about how we need both sides of our brain to be able to function properly and be able to see everything, which is what I've been explaining in face readings. If you don't have these cheeks and you don't have the awareness of like something protruding out here, like this whole line is a protrusion. If it's very thin and you have like a sweetheart face, whether you're a man or a woman, you're not showing that you have logical neurons, you're showing that you have emotional neurons. And a lot of women have not enough of this and only this. So she's also including that portion, if that makes sense.
So what is the purpose of people, I guess, having, is that a skill or something that where they can turn off their one side of their brains? Why would somebody do that?
Usually trauma. So like for her, it was a heart attack. For me, it was trauma. I've met other people that it was trauma. Usually it's trauma. Everybody has trauma though. So it's like,
everybody has something that they're trying to work through.
Yeah.
But there's people that turn off the right side as opposed to the left side?
People on both sides. So there's, especially in face readings, I can see it all. I'm like, I always tell people, I'm like, everyone's fucked up. Like I can see. So a lot of people, if you notice that there's some people that don't have these cheeks, and it's usually men actually, which coincides with the story that they're told growing up, which is like, no one will ever be there for you. No one owes you anything. You have to work for everything that you have. Those are stories that for a man growing up in this society, it's like, oh, I have to turn off my heart and my emotions in order to succeed, which is a fallacy that a lot of men fall into. And so they're turning off their heart neurons, which is actually a form of premonition and a gut feeling, and only using their logic. And so logic will get you so far, but it'll be like Grant Cardone, right? There's only 7 people on here, but I can tell you that I always knew and I hypothesized that these mother effers were sketchy because based off of face readings, they lack certain things. And then I met people that confirmed through their, how can I say it in a non-way that'll get people in trouble? Through proving how they get their money, that it's not the best business plan. The problem with those two is that the wife she has heart neurons and she has very little logical neurons. So like math, science, awareness, but she has a lot of love. The husband doesn't have any love and he's just focused on logical neurons. So like math and science. So while she believes in him, which is probably half of his success, because happy wife, happy life, the gray matter is composing his reality. The man that has all logic is depleting himself and probably going to unalive sooner rather than later, because you need both of these not only to have more brain function and cognitive decision-making skills, but also to live longer. That's why
They need balance.
They balance, but they allow you to have discernment, so that a lot of these men that are like, oh, women use you, abuse you, blah, 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 they probably only focus on logical neurons, or they only focus on emotional neurons, where they get played into the same poopy situation, if you will. It's the same thing with women. Like most women are lacking this part, but they have this part, right? They're only emotional and they're not able to see the reality of the situation. For example, like a guy that doesn't really like them, or a guy that has no job and that they're supporting, or a guy that they have a baby with that doesn't pay child support. These are all situations in which a woman is avoiding her logical accountability and responsibility and only acting on emotions, which is our heart neurons. You combine that with the hormone issue and it's like you're fucked.
So each half of your brain craves the other half of the brain because it like I said, it brings balance, but it brings one side down and it'll bring one side up. So you turn off your right side of your brain when you don't want to feel anything, which what you just stated, but you turn off your left side of your brain when you feel like you can't understand. You're in such a level of confusion that there's nothing that you can ever make sense. So it's easier to just turn that off.
Yeah, I mean, same, like opposite, but yeah, the same shit, different toilet. It's the right side, I think, is emotional and creative, and the left side is the logical and mathematical. But you turn off one or the other in order for your brain to think and feel like it's surviving something bad. So, like what I said earlier is
to numb things.
Yeah, but what I said earlier is that with drug addicts, they're a great example of this because they essentially have turned off the left side of their brain, which is logic, reasoning, and hard work. And they've only allowed the dreamer side of their brain, which is the right side, the creative, the excited, the let me make art side. So you have actors, singers, all of those are all using their right side of the brain. But if they want to be those things and they're using the right side of their creative brain, but they're not putting forth the effort and the focus and the mental capacity that it takes to succeed on the left side of the brain, that's why you have so many of those artistic people that never make a name for themselves. It's because they have not engaged the left side of their brain, which a part of logic and mathematical equations is the understanding that you have to work for what you want. Faith without works is dead. And there's too many woo-woo fucking people that are like, just manifest it into your life. There's a mathematical equation. It should be 80% manifestation, 20% work. That does not mean that you don't work. It just means that you are able to work more effectively and make smarter decisions to get to your goals faster. If you're also not there yet, then that's a muscle that you work and you keep on working it until you get there.
So I think a lot of artists have fallen in love with the concept of being a broke artist. They believe it to be a virtue to like, not have money. They think that's the way to be, not realizing that you can totally be a true artist and actually make money off of it because you're actually giving that energy back out to the world, and the universe is giving back to you.
Well, there's also something even in religion that it says like penance is a virtue. Penance is something that you need to go through in order to be a subservient of God, Allah, whatever, because what actually happens, this is like through historians, is that in the medieval times, there were so many poor people that didn't have food and shelter that the churches, which were a part of the government agencies at that time, wrote in when they took out a bunch of the stuff from the Bibles and the different types of Bibles that we have. They wrote in penance is a virtue in order to keep the people that were in poverty in line, understanding that it's a sacrifice that they're giving to their God.
Yes.
And most people,
that's still a central tenet of a lot of religions.
Right. And that's why I said most religions. I didn't say just Christian or Catholic. It's also Muslim. Like, it's this idea that we have to suffer in order to prove that we love God, when the reality is, the question I always asked myself and why I never could fall in line. I believe that there is something greater than me that created all of us. I can't argue that. I'm like, us being alive and all the patterns and synchronicities makes no sense if I think that way. But I could not imagine something creating me and then saying you have to suffer to prove that you love me. Like, what? Bitch, what? Like, that's not no. If I had a kid and I told them you have to suffer in order to love me, then I don't love that child. That's conditional. If someone is telling me I have this unconditional God that loves me, then I also understand that what I do and how I live and the things that I do are an experience, and there's nothing that's going to be condemning me for that. But anyway, so we all get programmed with poverty is a penance. But if you look at the reality, it's not that way. And so when you're able to realize that and you reprogram yourself, you have more opportunities come to you. It's really weird. This whole
program. No, it's I think it seems weird because we were never taught this growing up. We were always taught.
Well, imagine being I had 10 years in therapeutic services and I was a counselor. Like, I dealt with this shit for 10 years and I'm like, what is it? 15, almost 16? No, I'm 32. I was in this in 15. So about 15 years later, I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh, it's programming. We all have the ability to reprogram ourselves. So as a coach, I charge people to reprogram them. And I like to work with men because I reprogram their relationship with women, which is hard because like they're sometimes assholes to me. But
that's what happens when you get all your social skills from the internet.
Well, it's not just that. It's they imagine like most. Okay, let's go back because I also did the history. I wasn't understanding why men, fathers, and you're a father that hasn't done this, which is why I really love you. I love you. But through the statistics and through me one-on-one talking to so many fucking social workers in America, the amount of men that give up on their children, the amount of men that don't fight for the children, the amount of men that just walk away from the children. I was like, and then being in the manosphere and being like, what? Like, okay, but there's so many good men. How could they not be fighting for it? It's that it's that programming. Men have been programmed to fix things and women have been programmed to nurture things. So when you look at the unaliving, even men, when they unalive themselves and they go through with it, 70% more than women, they think this is the solution to the problem. I'm fixing the problem. Women think, as a nurturer, oh, what are they going to do without me? So they fix the solution by being nurturers and not going through with it, not enduring pain. They're actually people pleasing by not trying it, by not going through with it. They're people pleasing and saying, I don't want to burden my family with this whole situation. It makes a lot more sense because I couldn't, again, I'm like, as a woman, I'm like, why would men leave? But it makes more sense. They're trying to fix the problem. And also through face reading, men are on average, I'd say like 50% more depleted than women. Like us, even me, I've been pretty depleted, but my eye sockets are pretty filled. Most men, as they get older, their cheeks get lower and their eye sockets are depleted and they're empty. That's because they don't have anyone nurturing them. The eye sockets being empty is a nurturing factor. You did not have nurturing as a kid. So most men having this experience, it's like, oh, they've never had nurturing. Their back is against the wall and they've been programmed to fix things. Their only fixing is unaliving themselves and getting rid of the problem and fixing the situation. It's
they view themselves as the inherent problem to everything.
But they've been programmed to view themselves that way, and most men don't know that.
No, that's a good point. I think you're really on the money there for a lot of guys.
I know. I've been doing this shit for I deep dove and studied like a motherfucker. I see what it is. It's just the problem too is that women have been forced by this idea that therapeutic services like feeling and emotions, that men are supposed to feel like us, and if they don't, then they're narcissistic and they are evil monsters, when the reality is that your hormones are completely different than mine look like fucking spaghetti, and I can see all of the intertwinings and how this connects to that. And that's why when women were like, are you gonna love me as a worm, are you gonna love me as an ant, and we do stupid things like we self-sabotage for attention sometimes, or we are crazy and we start getting jealous for no reason and we're just like hormonal and like, that's our hormones. We don't mean to do that. That's literally our hormones taking control. And men, I don't know why it was created this way, but to me, it's a perfect little puzzle that like fits and helps each other. Men have hormones that are very linear and they can feel things. But the greatest example of this is if you and I get in an argument as a couple, an hour later, you're going to say, no, an hour later, you will have already felt all of the feelings and emotions about the argument. It takes me 24 hours to catch up to you.
Mm-hmm.
So typically, when you have a couple arguing and the man is always saying like, oh, I don't know why you're I don't know why you're not over this already. It's because his hormones have already processed it, aka emotions have already processed everything within that hour, max 2 hours. And women, we take 24 hours to process that. So we're thinking about it. We're thinking about what you did wrong. We're thinking about what we did wrong. We're thinking about what we didn't say. We're thinking about what you didn't say. We're thinking about, do you love me as a worm? We're thinking about like, why didn't you tell me I love you at the end? It's fucking crazy. It's not easy being us. And so that is also why we are excellent negotiators, because we are able to think of every possible outcome and how it connects. But the downside of that is that we can't let things go as easy as men. But men are able to be linear, and they're also able to hyper focus on things and have practical solutions, whereas women lag on that, if that makes sense.
No, I think you've described that pretty well. You're actually acknowledging that there's a difference between males and females, and you also acknowledge that therapy is telling women that essentially men and women are the same thing. So that's a point that I've made plenty of times, where modern Western society is telling everyone, telling children, hey, you're both basically the same. You need to respond the same, and it becomes very anti-male, very anti-masculine. But also when these children become adults and they're trying to interact with each other, they're both getting confused because they're giving what do you call it? Giving a stimulus, and they're expecting a response to be similar to themselves because they've been taught, hey, we're the same. Program. But then they get a response that's completely off the wall, and they're like, I don't understand this. Why are you so weird? Is this just you? No, males and females are completely different, and that's beautiful.
Yeah, well, and it's beautiful because we can help each other. It's not a bad thing. Imagine being in I was there in the therapeutic services for 10 years. I think 5 years was as a counselor, but the rest of the time I was doing marketing in that industry and other work in that industry. The amount of times that I've heard women calling men narcissists because they don't process and feel emotions the way that women do. I do agree that men do not feel as many emotions as they should because they've been programmed not to by society. I don't agree with the fact that if they don't, then therefore they are narcissists. We have to look at a society where understanding that women, we have been programmed to always believe someone will always be there for you. Someone's going to take care of you. And that's exactly what happens. And for men, we program them to believe no one deserves anything. No one owes you anything. You have to work very hard for anything that you get. And so they believe that, and they constantly have situations, people, places, and things that prove that. They don't have hand-me-outs for men. Not like women.
No, there's 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 all kinds of shelters for battered women. There's practically nothing for men.
There are hundreds and thousands of places for women, and there's probably about 15 to 20 max nationwide. That's fucking wild. That is really what the mental health services for men is so significantly low. It's like non-existent. They categorize it with co-ed, but they never really specialize with men. Unless it's drug addiction. Drug addiction, they do specialize with men because, again, those hormones are linear and they can get the program fairly quickly. Women are more complicated, so it's harder for them to get sober, and there's always going to be someone there for them, like a drug dealer, etc., that are going to take care of her. So the enticing feeling of I need to get sober isn't really there for women as much as it is for men. I worked in that industry forever, so like it's a detriment to women, and but it's proof in the pudding of what we've been brainwashed to believe, which is that we're the same, and we're not. I think there was a fighter too that just had a fight where she had to fight against a naturally born man.
And the Olympics.
Yeah.
There was two of them, one from China, one from Algeria.
She literally said,
I,
the look of petrifying fear in her fucking face is wild.
So I think the Algerian actually genuinely had a genetic disorder, but there's so much, like, I don't think anybody truly cut through all the controversy here of what actually happened. But I think there was a genuine genetic.
Can you explain it while I pee really quick? Because we're gonna give me a break.
So I think there was a genuine genetic issue there where the boxer from Algeria, where when she was born, externally she was female. She presented as female, but internally she was male, meaning she had male levels of testosterone throughout growth, throughout puberty, and as an adult. And that is an interesting area for that people should look at and understand. But this boxer essentially did go through male puberty and is biochemically a male, and was allowed to box a woman born female, lived her entire life as female, had female levels of estrogen, female levels of testosterone. Of course, everyone that Algerian boxer faced was going to have issues, because even though externally she had she had female reproductive organs, internally she was completely male and had those advantages. So that could have been an interesting conversation on the international stage, but nobody really wanted to touch it because they would have had to admit, wait a minute, men and women are still different.
I've been hit by a man and I've been hit by a woman. And when she said, I was literally terrified for my life, I resonated with that, because men hit like 10 times more than women. We can say whatever the fuck. And I got hit by a professional boxer that was a female. So it's like, that shit scared me. I was like, oh, fuck. She was like, I just had one hit from each. She looked like she was wailed on. And you can't match. Testosterone is there to protect and provide and to not feel as much. They're a little bit more disassociated than women. So women, not only are you categorizing the impact of the actual hit, but you're also categorizing the impact that it has on you as a female, because you feel everything. But we just had a neurologist that explained, if you have more heart neurons and more of the right side brain that is in control, then you feel more. So naturally, compared to a man, if you get hit as a man, you're going to feel less than a woman does if she gets hit. It's hormonal. It's proven by science through hormones and emotions, like
skeletal development and muscle development, joint development. But evolutionarily, women's greatest weapons have always been words, their ability to talk and manipulate. But men were never so keen on that. Their greatest weapons were always fist and testosterone. They're just inherently different.
I wouldn't say manipulate. I would say la la land.
Well, they had to think about problems in a different way.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm going to drop the link one more time, and if anyone wants to join, wonderful. If not, I'm going to close it up because it's at 1 hour and 28, and I'm like, my heart neurons in my brain, my right side of my brain, are like, bitch, let's go to sleep.
I wish I could go to sleep that early. I'm a night person. I said, I wish I could go to sleep that early. I'm a night person.
No, the problem is, it's like, so it's 9:51. I need a shower. I'll be in bed by like 11:30, and then I'll fall asleep. And for some reason, the last maybe 4 days, I keep waking up around 1 or 2, and then I stay up until fucking 6 o'clock in the morning. And then I'm like exhausted. Last night I took a sleeping pill, like a sleep aid, over the counter. What is it called? Bro, sorry. Talk to my sister. what is it, like Tylenol night PM without the Tylenol part, just the PM part that makes you sleep. And I took that last night, so I got a full like 8 hours of sleep. But yeah. Anyways. I don't know what that means, Daniel. I tried to understand what you mean by this, but I don't know. Just to recap, the human brain attached to the skeleton or the spinal cord looks like semen. And yeah, watch the rest of the episode if you want to. Any last words?
You know, everyone just go out there and love yourself. Ask yourself, when you're having a hard time, ask yourself, what is the most loving decision I can make for myself? And centralize it that way. And don't centralize it around money. The pursuit of money is very fleeting. Some of the richest people you've ever met can be very miserable because it's not always about that. It's about how you feel on the inside and your willingness to love yourself.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback off of that. As within, so without. So if you put yourself last, the universe will give you situations, people, and places and things to put you last.
Oh, yeah.
You are a princess like me, then you will get things for free randomly, and you'll be a passenger princess, and everything just always works out for you. And this is for men too. It doesn't mean that you have to be a princess, but you could be a prince. Like, I've always met men that wanted to be kings, and then I met a man that wanted to be a prince, and he worked very little, and he gained a lot, and he was very charismatic. And I'm like, bro, I want to be like you, sir. So like that's where I learned to be a princess. It's from a fucking dude. Like, and he was right. He was like, think about it this way, Anna. Like, do princesses and princes get more freedom and joy, or do kings and queens? And I was like, you are absolutely right, sir. Kings and queens have all of the responsibility, not enough freedom, and they don't really get to yield their power as they wish that they could, whereas princesses and princes really, really fucking do. And when I switched that, and I also like brainwashed myself to believe that everything always works out in my favor, I get everything for free and everything works out in my favor. Like, my life is pretty perfect right now. It's fucked up, but it's so pretty perfect. Okay, I'm going to drop you down. Thank you, Wes.
Happy to be here.
Again, my name is Anna. Thank you for everyone that has been here. I appreciate every single person that's here, and especially the wrenches. Thank you for being here at the beginning. Thank you for being here now. I'm back to podcasting full time. I have some cool interviews coming up this week, and thanks, everybody. Do good things. I love